If you work in the NHS, chances are you've looked at your payslip and thought, why is my take-home pay so different from my salary? In this video, I'm going to explain the NHS Payslip, line by line, in plain English. We'll cover what each section means, why money is deducted, and how to check your payslip is actually correct. This video applies to most NHS staff in England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, including those on Agenda for Change and doctors in training. By the end, you'll understand exactly where your money goes and how to spot common mistakes. With that being said, sit back, relax, and let's take a deeper dive into the data. Now, the first section is your personal and employment details. This is normally at the very top or very bottom of the payslip. You'll usually see your name, assignment number or employee number, and your payroll or assignment IDE. This information is important if you ever need to query your pay with payroll or HR. Next, you'll see the pay period, usually 1 calendar month, and the pay date, which for most NHS staff is around the 27th of each month. You'll also see your NI number and sometimes your tax code, which we'll come back to later. So let's move on to the earnings section, often titled Payments. The most important line here is basic pay, which can also be recorded as salary. For Agenda for Change staff, this is based on your band and pay point. For doctors, this will reflect your nodal point, or for consultants, your basic salary. If you work less than full-time, your basic pay will already be prorated. You may also see your contracted hours, for example, 37.5 hours per week for full-time Agenda for Change staff. This section tells you what the NHS believes your normal working hours and base pay are, so it's important this is correct. Below basic pay, you'll often see additional payments. These can include unsocial hours enhancements, overtime, mileage, on-call supplements, weekend or night duty pay, London waiting or high-cost area supplements. For Agenda for Change staff, unsocial hours are often paid as enhancements, not overtime. For doctors, this may include additional hours, on-call availability supplements, or locum shifts. These payments are usually calculated separately, which is why your pay can vary month to month. I would say it's always best to double-check these amounts if your rota has changed. All of your earnings are then added together to give your gross pay at the bottom. This is the total amount you've earned before any deductions, such as tax, national insurance, and pension deductions. Taxable pay is calculated using the total payments minus tax-free deductions, for example, employee pension contributions. Now let's move on to deductions. These are normally located adjacent to the payment section and broken down into individual outgoings. Income tax. Income tax goes to the central government and helps pay for facilities like healthcare, education, infrastructure, defence and public services. The tax is deducted automatically through a system called Payee, or pay as you earn. The amount of tax taken depends largely on your tax code, a special code sent to your employer by HMRC, the tax authority in the UK. This tax code tells payroll how much of your income is tax-free before deductions begin. This tax-free amount is called the personal allowance, which currently is £12,570 per year for most people, for the 2025/26 tax year. However, your tax code can change based on your circumstances. For example, if you have a second job or pension, your tax-free allowance might be split between sources. If you receive benefits in kind, like a company car, your tax code might be adjusted upwards. If you owe back taxes or have unpaid tax from previous years, your code might include a recovery adjustment. For example, if your tax code is 1257L, that means you have a personal allowance of £12,570. The number corresponds to the allowance divided by 10. Your employer uses this allowance to calculate how much of your monthly earnings are taxable. If you earn more than your personal allowance in a month, you pay income tax on the amount above it, according to the current tax bands: 20% basic rate, 40% higher rate, and 45% additional rate. You can see these thresholds on screen now. A wrong tax code can lead to paying too much tax or too little, which could result in a surprise bill at the end of the year or a delayed refund. It's important to check your tax code regularly. You can do this online via HMRC's website or your personal tax account. National insurance is another mandatory deduction from your pay that goes to the government. However, the contributions are important because they build your entitlement to certain benefits and the state pension. Your NI record determines whether or not you qualify for the pension, and it typically requires 35 qualifying years for the full amount. NI contributions are calculated differently from income tax because they are based on your earnings each pay period, not your annual salary. In practice, this means that every month, if your earnings are above a certain threshold, called the primary threshold, you pay a percentage of your earnings as NI. For the 2025/26 tax year, the monthly primary threshold is £1,048. If you earn below this amount, then you do not pay national insurance. Earnings between this threshold and the upper earnings limit, £4,189 monthly, are charged at 8%. Earnings above the upper earnings limit are charged at a lower rate of 2%. This can feel confusing because even if your annual salary is below the tax-free allowance for income tax, you may still pay national insurance if your monthly pay exceeds the threshold. The NI deduction on your payslip will often say something like Class 1 NI contributions or NICS. For most NHS staff, one of the largest deductions is the NHS Pension Scheme. Now, I am not going into a large amount of detail here, as I have done a full video about the NHS pension, including real-world examples, which you can watch if you are interested. However, I will just touch on the basics. The NHS pension is a defined benefit pension, and contributions are taken as a percentage of your pensionable pay. This percentage increases as your salary increases. For doctors and higher earners, this can be a significant deduction, but it also represents a valuable benefit. On screen now, you will also see the pensionable pay ranges and contribution rates. Your payslip will usually say something like pension contribution, and is often split into employee and employer. The total employer contribution is 23.7%. However, the payslip doesn't normally show this in the employer pension section. This is because usually 14.38% is paid directly through payroll, and then the remaining 9.4% is paid by NHS England or the relevant government department. If you've opted out of the pension, this line won't appear. Always double check that your pension status matches what you expect. Below these main deductions, you may also see other lines such as student loan repayments, salary sacrifice schemes, childcare vouchers, union subscriptions. Student loan repayments only start once you earn above the threshold, and the amount depends on your loan plan. These deductions are normal, but they should always make sense to you. Finally, we reach net pay, the amount that actually lands in your bank account. This is your gross pay minus all deductions. At the top or bottom of your payslip, you'll often see year-to-date totals, which are useful for checking tax, pension contributions, and overall earnings. If you are interested, there are some useful NHS take-home calculators online, which can be used to get a rough guide of what you should be earning at each band. I would recommend having a look if you get time. Take the outcomes with a pinch of salt, as all incomes vary due to specific circumstances. Understanding your NHS payslip puts you in control of your money and helps you spot errors early. Think of understanding your payslip as step 1 of managing your money in the NHS. Once this makes sense, things like budgeting, saving, pensions, and tax planning become much easier to understand. This channel is going to cover all of those topics, so it's worth making sure this foundation is solid first. Everything else builds from here. If you found this video useful, then please hit the like button below and subscribe for more UK-specific finance explainers, especially for NHS staff. Please let me know in the comments what NHS finance topic you'd like me to dive into next. I want to make these videos as engaging as possible because it is really important that this knowledge is shared. Please let me know if you feel any changes might improve your experience here at the average payslip. I hope we cross paths again, and I wish you all the best for your future.